Hey, welcome back in to Pritches Get Stitches. Excited that you're here with us. Again, maybe you're back with us. Maybe you're here for the first time. Glad you decided to spend a little bit of time with us today and kind of go through some cool topics today that we're going to talk about. So, Holly, welcome back.
Thank you. Here we are.
So, obviously, the obligatory question every time that we get started here, well, realistically, I don't really see you drinking anything over there. What's going on?
I'm sticking to water today, twofold. So this week, I'm trying to start a Mediterranean style-based diet. And so it talks about you have to drink a lot of water, which I drink a lot of water anyway. So that's kind of the start, because I'm struggling with working out because of my back. So I'm just trying to maintain, my clothes are getting a little snug. I haven't been able to row consistently. So one, water for that reason. But two, I'm a little hungover today, man.
What did you do last night?
I didn't do anything. I just sat at the house, drank some vodkas. And for some reason, it hit me extra hard today. I didn't drink a whole lot more than I normally drink.
Okay.
But the only thing I could think of is last night I didn't what I like to call pre-game. So people usually call pre-gaming if they're going to go out, they'll drink beforehand. Uh-huh. So for me, pre-gaming is setting up for when I get home from drinking. So that way I remember to brush my teeth, take my meds, or take not my meds, but also ibuprofen and all of this. So when people are like, "Oh, you pre-gamed," I'm like, "Oh, no, hold up. Let me define this." So usually it's literally I put my toothpaste out with the toothbrush out with the toothpaste on it, my glass of water, my pills are out, my ibuprofen's out.
So you pre-gamed, but you didn't even go out. Is that what you're telling? Am I hearing that?
So no. So my point is last night I actually didn't pre-game. So I forgot to
brush your teeth.
I did brush my teeth, but I forgot the ibuprofen. So needless to say, I woke up today
a little sore.
Very parched as well. So I've got a little bit of a headache, pretty parched because I didn't set out the water and drink the 2 glasses of water that I normally drink or whatever. So I figured the best way to do it with my stuff, I'm sure you and Val have some essential oil or some craziness that I could take and feel immediately better. But
I got all sorts of stuff you could probably take. Well, here's the thing. I don't really study up on how to get over a hangover because I've never been hungover, nor have I drank. However, my mother-in-law, shout out to Mel, I know she's probably listening. She probably does have something. Not that she drinks, but she's the holistic queen. And so I'm sure she has something for you.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, usually I just stick with water. If I'm upset to my stomach, if I drink beer and then you get a queasy stomach sometimes the next day, the only way to get rid of that part of the hangover is to eat greasy food. But I don't have that part. I just had the headache and very hot mouth.
Did you have any coffee this morning? Can you function without it?
The function is I can get out of bed, but I may not be able to. I may get out of bed and then go to the couch and then be on the couch for the rest of the day without my coffee.
That's what I'm saying. Is there a day you go that does a day go by that you don't drink coffee?
Oh no, not on purpose. The only time that's happened is if I've somehow forgotten to order extra Nespresso. But if that happens and it's last case scenario, I'm driving over to some coffee shop to get something. But I've had a day without coffee probably since I was hospitalized in May of 21 because I couldn't eat or drink anything because they were determining if I was going to need surgery on the aneurysm. But otherwise, before that and since then, I just have it every day. I don't know if it's psychological also, maybe a little psychosomatic, I need it because I have to have it to function.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way about caffeine. This morning I had to leave at 6 o'clock. I had to drive 2.5 hours this morning to go serve a dude in jail. So then I had to stop and get my energy drink.
Yeah, and the days that I go where I don't have the caffeine, it's the headache comes. So I definitely know there's a dependency on it.
I'd like to pull our listeners on that. Can you function without coffee? That's a good poll question. Maybe there's a lot of non-coffee drinkers that listen. Maybe they have something else. That's another question.
My friend Karen, she drinks tea every day. She can't function without that. I can't function without coffee. But before coffee, how did I function? Because I functioned.
Same way I do. You just wake up and go.
Oh, I just can't now. And it might just be for me, because I'm a little OCD in routines and habits. And so it might just be the methodology of it. The routine of getting up and doing this and brewing the coffee. So it might be more about that. And that's what I mean when I say like psychosomatic.
Gotcha.
And you're just doing water today, I assume?
Yeah, just handling the water. I had an amino drink this morning. It's waiting for that day when Optimum Nutrition listens in and says, hey, we're going to sponsor your show and you always have to drink one of those during the show. I'll be like, sweet. But
I have a feeling we're going to be waiting for a really long time for that to happen.
So for now, it's water because, it's free and kind of.
Yeah, GPT probably told you to do it in your meal plan. Drink lots of water.
That's true. They did. I've been doing that, by the way. Actually, the past 4 days, I've been using the Chat GPT workout plan. I haven't done the eating plan, just the workout plan. Anyways, moving forward, we do have a guest with us today, and they're waiting in our VIP lounge right now to come in. So we do have a topic of the day this time, and our fun fact, as reading through the fun fact, it looks like that it kind of coincides with our topic of the day. Yeah,
for sure. So topic of the day we discussed a little bit last week is about blended families, the dynamic of a blended family, step family, adopted, children. And so I wanted to tie in the fun fact to that. And so my fun fact, there's quite a bit to it, but every second, 4 new babies are born across the world, which equals 250 births per minute, 15,000 births per hour, or 360,000 births per day.
That's a lot of births.
That is a lot of births. And there are more twins now than ever before. So 3% or just over 3% of all babies born are twins.
My wife always wanted twins. She's like, hey, if we have 2 more kids, like, cause there's a part of her like, hey, we have 4 maybe, but she's like an even number person. So she's like, if we have another one by accident, let's say, like we can't have 1, we have to have 2. And so her hope was that, hey, if I do get pregnant again, then it's twins. And she's, getting a little older in age. She's 39. And I think the fun fact there is that older women tend to have twins more.
They do.
However, I'm happy to announce I'm sterile. Can't have any more kids.
Well, then, I guess if she shows up pregnant, man, may be an issue. Or I guess, you could be like, in vitro, maybe. I don't know. There is a chance. We knew people who growing up in church.
Yeah. Garcia's, man.
She had her tubes and he had a vasectomy.
And then they had their little kid.
And they had a baby.
Yeah, he was a good kid too, man. I'm glad.
Yeah,
I'm sure they are too.
Wasn't he like 13, 14 years younger than the youngest at the time?
Yeah, Joe was 15 and Jacob came in and he was, when he was 14 or 15. So good kids, man. Good kids.
I'll tell you that the chances of that happening, man, that was some kismet there. That was meant to happen. So that's my fun fact of the day.
And just to kind of go along with that, we're seeing older and older women getting pregnant as they, like we talked about, I don't even know if we brought it up in our podcast. I think we brought it up in our first run through and then we had to re-record. And that is, I'm 40, my wife's 39. Our kids range from 8 to 16. And some of the friends that we, the people that we try to build friendships with, they're 39, 40, but they have 3 and 4 year olds.
Right.
And that's their oldest. And so people are later and later waiting to have kids. They're starting their careers, finishing college, those kind of things. And I know some of my nephews and nieces, they don't even have kids and they're in their 30s.
Well, and I think too, the dynamics of why children over time, like why do people have children? That's changed over time. Back in the day, people had big families and a lot of children young because they got married young and then they had, farms or whatever and needed this help. And before child labor laws and, everyday school was implemented, that was a major reason people had children. And so I think because of that and just the way the world has evolved, people are choosing to not have children, now than, a decade ago, even a decade ago. So
interesting. Okay. So like I said, we have some guests with us today, with our topic being blended families. And I'm going to bring them here, as you're talking here in just a minute, Holly. But as we talk about blended families, you and I grew up 2 parents, 8 kids. There was no split. There was no divorces or anything like that. No blending. And today I personally have 4 kids, not blended, nothing like that. And so I'm not very much an expert on this. However, I know a lot of people. In fact, my brother and sister-in-law, they have a his, hers scenario. They listen to this.
Hers and theirs.
So it was his and hers, and they were trying to have a theirs, and the theirs was never happening. They weren't having a baby. And so they decided, hey, we're going to adopt. And they ended up being able to foster a brother and a sister. They were young, like 1 and 2 years old. And eventually they were able to adopt. And so they fostered the children. they get the announcement, hey, we're going to adopt, and like almost immediately from them getting the announcement that they're going to adopt them and the babies are going to be theirs, she finds out she's pregnant.
Oh, how old were the babies? The children they adopted?
They're like, right now it's like 1, 2, and 3. So
rough. Good on her, man. You tell her it's a good on her. She's
she's 40 with having a baby, and then they have his, hers, theirs, adopted, the whole deal. So
yeah, they're in every aspect of a blended family right there.
Less than, right? They are saints.
I'd have to say, I don't know. Like, I think that if I was in a scenario where I was going to adopt and I got pregnant and they were little, I don't know that I'm a good enough person to say that I would continue that adoption. I might have been like,
oh man, they had them for so long though. It had them for over a year, and it was like they were their kids. So
I guess. All right.
But yeah, it's like 2 different families. It's like 3 different families all put together.
Gotcha.
Anyways, so I don't have that dynamic. However, you being married a couple times, you've had stepkids that you've had to come in and essentially like, do I help raise them? Some of them,
right.
A couple of them you did, a couple of them maybe you were just stepmom,
right?
Kind of a thing.
Right. So the first one that I had stepchildren with, he had 12-year-old twins at the time, and twin girls. So we got together. Luckily, we have a nephew, Colby, who was their age, and Colby took to those 2 girls very quickly and immediately. And their mom was in their life. She had primary custody of them. It was a situation where my husband at the time, he and I had, I guess it was joint custody, but she was the primary. And so they were with us every other weekend. Thursday nights, we had Thursday nights every other weekend, and then summer holidays, whenever. And so that was more, I really didn't get involved as much as far as like the parenting aspect of it. Like that was very much left to my ex and his ex. And we essentially, I just, they came to our home. We were there for the weekend, but any sort of disciplining or anything over the weekend, that was 100% on him. And I, prepared the meals or whatever the situation was. But it was more like I was an adult there for supervision, but I'm not getting involved in all the aspects. Like if there was something going on at school, and it was a very strenuous relationship between his ex-wife and me. And so if they had anything like at the school or anything like that, he would go.
Right. And
tell them like, hey, Holly wanted to be here, but it was really because the ex made such a big deal about it that I didn't want it to have a negative impact on the kids.
So you had that one where you had,
I had that one.
You have that style, but then you had a different style, and we can talk about that other style kind of as we go through.
For sure.
As we go through here with our guests here, but I'm gonna bring them in here.
Sure.
Hey, how are you guys?
Guys.
All right, so we've got Kiko and Sariah Arvizu with us.
Hello, hello, hello.
Howdy.
That's a good Texas welcome, but you're not from Texas, but
that's right.
No.
That's right. I just want to be cool like you and perpetrate a little bit. Stand up from Texas.
So we were just talking, introducing our topic of the day, and Holly was talking about her first marriage and it kind of being I would say probably like an adult that loved the kids, but you weren't really a step parent. And Sariah and Kiko, tell us your story. Where are you guys? How are you guys together? What's going on in your life right now?
So we've been married about 3.5 years. We got married right before COVID. So we got a lot of time together when we were newly married.
Yeah.
And we have a combined 5 children. I have 1 bio child, and I was a single parent for 12 years before I met Kiko. And we both come from divorced parents, split family situations. We both had or thought we had good co-parenting situations with our exes. So we came into the marriage thinking we got this and we know exactly what we don't want to do because our parents were great examples of what not to do. And then reality hit us.
I was just telling that to Scott that with my first stepchildren, it was a difficult dynamic because their mom was still in their life and she absolutely abhorred me, like hated my guts. So it was a very difficult situation where it ended up with me being less of like Scott said, less of a step parent and more just an adult in their life who loved them and wanted good things for them. But as far as, discipline and everything else, very hands off here, out of it.
Yeah. In some circles, they call that the nacho method, like nacho kids.
Anything with nachos is good for me.
Nacho kids. We actually tried that for probably like 6 weeks or a couple months because we tried lots of different things. And we tried that like after trying multiple different avenues. We tried that and it just didn't work. It didn't work for us because I manage my own home, right? And I can't do that if I'm not being a parent to the children.
Well, also too, someone military background, right? She was a captain in the Army. So like that chaos is only going to last like for so long before like, oh, they send it in and you're talking to me for your kids, right? Like I knew at some point, like that was going to come out of her to be able to like bring some order to the chaos, which I thought it was, normal. I thought it was normal. That was the kind of thing, right? But like I had no clue because, we all model like relationships from our childhood, right? So I thought what I was doing was a good thing, even though I was keeping my kids, safe. I wasn't doing the best job as far as with the structure. And then here comes Captain Sariah here. Plus two, you guys know a little bit about her background. I mean, this woman is amazing. Like I married up like big time.
Listen, man, that's what you have to do. I don't think there's a dude that marries.
I did too, so he understands.
Yeah. I saw your profile pic the other day. I was like, dang, he's like sport. No offense, bro. Love the beard.
No, his vibe is the best.
Yeah, love the beard. But like,
sure, too, I just don't know you.
So anyway, so when I knew already her background, her corporate background, like the position she held in her career. I mean, this is a powerful woman here. So I knew it was just going to be a matter of time before it kicked in. And today I'm so grateful for that because my kids now they're stable, they're structured, they're thriving. They have the normal challenges like every other kid these days. And it seems like it's much more difficult to be a kid today because of social media and all the nonsense you have there.
Oh, yeah.
But they're thriving now because of this amazing woman here. I'm so grateful.
Okay, cool. So Sariah, real quick, I want to jump back a few years when we met.
Okay. Yeah.
So we met, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago when you were in the Army. I think you were even deployed at one point.
Yes, I deployed out of Kuwait and I was still married when we first met.
Okay.
So you were there with me through the first marriage and you saw me through the divorce and being single for the first couple of years.
So here you go. You get divorced. You have, you're now a single mom. Kind of, what was that like? And for years, I think you said 12.
It was like 12 years, 12 or 13 years. I was single. My ex lived in another state. So I always say there's different grades of being a single mom. Like some people's like, I'm a single mom, but their ex is there, super involved, has the kids half the time. So they get $6,000 a month in child support and spousal support. And I'm like, you are a different kind of single mom than me trying to do it completely on my own. She was only 2 years old when I got a divorce. And I was still in the military and then also transitioned to civilian world where both of my careers at the time required massive amounts of time, like minimum 10 to 12 hours a day. So childcare was super important back then. That was difficult. That was hard. The mom guilt, like luckily I was already like the sole provider for my family when I was married. So I didn't go through a lot of the struggles that some single parents do if they, aren't providing for themselves. So I did have that. And I moved around a lot. So every time I picked up and moved, I lost my village. So before my daughter was 9, we lived in 7 different states because of my career. So I constantly didn't have a village to help with childcare with a young child. So that was a big issue and made dating very hard. So and there's a whole other topic, but is dating while you are a single parent is like
You're welcome. I came in to take care of that.
A whole other thing. And but yeah, and at that time I did have I think I would say I co-parented well with my ex, but he also lived in another state. So I wouldn't say it was co-parenting. It was more like
it sounds like you're parenting and
I'm parenting, but
every once in a while.
We worked hard to have a good relationship, and his new wife I get along great with, and I pretty much co-parent with her now.
Okay.
Full time, and she's been my daughter's entire life. And I would say for any bio parent, latch on to your ex's new spouse and love on them and work with them because it's so much easier because you don't have a history.
And I think it's hard too, coming from, I don't have biological children. So I came into the situation, both marriages, where they had kids. And with the first one, it was, like you said, very much opposite of that. And so it was hard for me to kind of find my footing, to kind of establish what kind of relationship this was with the kids. Because, the mom was, that their mom was talking bad about me, talking bad about their dad. And so it was just
high conflict.
Yeah, high conflict, somewhat toxic situation. And I can remember at one point, my ex was going as a contractor overseas to Afghanistan for a year. And I knew during that year, like, it was made very apparent to me that I was not going to see the girls when he was gone. And that was hard, not only for me, but because of my nephew, who was their best friend. I mean, when those girls were at my house, my nephew was there. They were like, three musketeers. And so when that happened, I reached out to, their mom and basically said, like, hey, like, I know my ex is, he's getting ready to leave. And I have all of this stuff at my house for the girls that obviously is not going to be used over the next year. And I would, can I bring it over and drop off for them? And so she reluctantly agreed that I could go. And, when I went over there and took all of the stuff, I think she was floored by the amount of stuff that I had bought for the kids in my own home, because I wanted them to feel, even though it wasn't their home, I wanted it to feel like they could say, this was a home, this was a safe place they can go. So they had, tons of clothes, even though they were only there, a couple weekends a week or a month. I bought them clothes so that they wouldn't have to wear the same thing every time. But she was very much the kind that sent them only with what clothes they were wearing, like would not send them with a toothbrush, nothing. Like if they want, she didn't allow them to bring over anything of theirs that they might want from home. They brought pajamas or things like that.
We ran into that a little bit. So what started off as a like very easy breezy co-parenting, when I came into the situation, things started to change quickly, which is we've learned now, learning more about it and talking more freely about it. People are telling us their stories, which starts to become common. So we actually did our research, and at least in the state of Utah where we live, and I think in many states, once you give property to a child, it is technically theirs and they can take it where they want, meaning clothes, skateboards. So there are things that we've made known, like, hey, this TV goes in your room, but it's not yours. And we made it known, like, hey, that's ours. This cell phone you get to use, but it's not yours. But most of the things that they have, we were like, it's yours. You can take it about. And when it's come into question, like, hey, this swimming suit stays at my house, or these pair of shoes stays at my house, we have spoke to attorneys and figured out what to tell the kids and what to reply. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. So I would suggest any parent in that situation, do your research. One, if you are being the parent who's like, my stuff, my house, I pay for it, that is the first red flag that you are high conflict and you might need to go do some internal work on yourself.
We are big proponents of therapy.
Yeah. At one point in time, every one of our 5 kids, each us individually and couples therapy, we were scheduling 8 different therapy sessions every couple of weeks.
And I think that's necessary for the parent. And it's hard. And I'm just not that way. Like, I will definitely fight if I have to. I don't prefer it. I try to be very analytical and pragmatic and logical. And so I just couldn't understand why a parent, like, you're supposed to be putting your children first. And if this is a comfort for your child to bring over this stuffed animal, like, why would you say you're just making your child uncomfortable? So we had that situation where we found the exact same stuffed animal that the girls had, because it was like their little, one had a blanket and one had a stuffed animal. We found basically the exact same. So even though it wasn't the same one, it's still, we wanted it to feel like, hey, I still have this, because it was very much that way where it was like, why wouldn't you put your child first? And that's what I struggle with, being the step parent coming into that situation. It just made no sense to me.
And that's when usually the transition takes place from co-parenting to parallel parenting, or perpendicular parenting, as it's not right? Yeah, because we didn't know.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So we both came into the marriage with an ideal of what we wanted for co-parenting, of like how we wanted it to be. Coming from a very toxic situation myself, my parents, hundreds of thousands of dollars in court, went to the Supreme Court. My parents' case is taught in law school now.
Wow.
Now, Castle versus Simmons, and it has been used to change a lot to date, like now 33 different states. So I know what I don't want. And so I had this vision of what I did want, and I worked really hard to create that in my child's life. And then Kiko also agreed that he wanted that. So we worked really hard. And the thing that I learned is that so much of your co-parenting relationship relies on the bio parents. As a step parent, I don't have much control over the bio parents' actions. But largely it depends on the mom in so many instances. Fathers don't seem to create as much drama. But we were struggling. We really wanted to have this like ideal co-parenting situation. Before we got married, both of us have gone on holidays and vacations with our ex and their new spouse, taking the kids together to an amusement park. And when we were dating, him and his ex went to Knott's Berry Farm together with the kids. Like we really wanted to have that for our kids' future. Hey, we can all get together on a holiday.
Birthday parties together. Like
there's no reason. Like my daughter, one of the things she said, because her dad lives in a different state, so it was harder. She said, I would love to just have all the people that I love together at one time. Like I hate when I'm with my dad and I miss you. And when I'm with you, I miss my dad. So I'm always missing somebody. It always feels like a part of me is missing. And she said this when she was like 7, like very, very brilliant little mind, right? And so we didn't want that for our kids. But at some point in time, it wasn't happening and we were pushing a chain. Like that's one thing that
you can't push a chain.
Kiko's very big on like if you could
pull it.
You can pull somebody along, but you can't push them. And we were struggling, was affecting our marriage. And in about a month time frame, we were told by my therapist, our couples therapist, and then we actually talked to one of our children's therapists who also doubled down because we were big on like
coaches, baby, coaches. Therapists are coaches. It's coaching.
Yes. So, but we were so like, we don't want to do something wrong. Like this is uncharted territory. So we were all in therapy and two of our therapists were like, you need to stop co-parenting. And I'm like, that's not, no, you're supposed to have healthy co-parenting. And they're like, stop. And then at one point in time, my therapist was like, how many kids do you have? I'm like, 5. She's like, it sounds to me like you have 6. And I was like, huh? She's like, you are trying to parent your stepchildren's mother. And I was like, bam. And so we had 2 therapists tell us to look into and start doing parallel parenting. And that was game changer for us. Like it literally saved our marriage. It saved our sanity. And the kids were able to start thriving because we were able to explain to them, like, you have 2 separate homes and they're different. And this is not fair to you. It's hard. But eventually you're going to learn what happens at mom's house and you're going to learn how to operate within that paradigm. And then you're going to learn what happens at dad's house and you're going to learn how to operate in that. And unfortunately, the kids have to switch, right? Like these poor kids have to pack bags, move around. And we have stuff at both houses, so they don't have to pack bags, but they still do. Because like you said, they have their favorite pants, their favorite shoes.
But the take-home message, I feel the take-home message is like, you can't worry and you can only control or take care of that you have influence over. Like, I can't do anything what happens in the walls of their mother's home, right? I can only maintain and manage and lead out in my own home.
What you have control.
So like what we have here, you have to let go of what happens over there and trust the process, right? And so ultimately you have to surrender to the process. And so when things weren't working in the beginning, like I had to surrender to her influence as well, so we can become united, so that I can allow her to lead out and to parent and to discipline, et cetera, because I was worried about it, right? Because it was new for me too, and it was really hard. Like it was tough. Like we got into a ton of arguments, a ton of fights. It's not easy. Like it's very difficult and it's messy, but you just have to surrender. You got to push your pride and ego to the side and you have to future pace it. You have to look down the road and be like, this is what this is going to look like. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to manifest if we go down this road or this road or this road, right? And then you just have to stay consistent.
Yeah. And so, you mentioned, this parallel parenting, no more, we're going to work together in this. I mean, obviously you want to work together with with the other parent, but it's like you said, hey, nobody gets into marriage. Nobody has kids thinking, hey, this is where we're going to be 15 years from now. But it is what it is. It's where we're at. And so let's make the best of it. And one of the things that we spoke a little earlier this week, and one of the things that you had mentioned was this stigma of step parents, right? The stigma of the step family, and kind of where that comes from. And for you guys going into this blended family, how did that stigma kind of in the beginning? Because I feel like you're beyond that stigma. And how did that stigma like affect you guys?
Yeah, Disney has worked really hard and the media's worked really hard to make step parents out to be evil, or like Modern Family and these other shows have made it seem like everybody gets along. And so when we were running into this, like, I'm not evil, right? Like I'm not out to get my stepkids. And we also weren't having the happy co-parenting situation that is now kind of coming out more in media. It felt like there was a stigma to talk about the problems. Like, also, there's a lot of court cases that, won't, like, you have to think about, are the kids going to see this? And then also, like, is this going to show up in court someday? So I think that there is a lot of things not being said. 50% of children under the age of 13 are being raised in a home that has a parent that is not their biological parent. Yeah. 50% of children are living with somebody who is not their biological parent, but yet we don't talk about it. And so I was looking for resources. I was looking for information. There's not a whole lot of books. There's not a whole lot of nothing to like turn to. Like, you're kind of on your own. Every situation is so different. So I turned to Facebook groups and I started looking for stepmom Facebook groups merely because I wanted to feel some sort of validation in what I was going through. Right. Like, and yes, we dealt with it. Like, his kids at different times have said, "You're not my mom," right? Like, they don't say that anymore, but they used to.
I might think it every so often when they're being turkey fishes, right? Let me answer this question really quick. You're asking how it affected us. It was like a bull in the china shop inside of a dumpster fire, inside of a fire alarm building fire, inside of a damn volcano. That's how it affected us. No joke.
Now, eventually, when his daughter was little, and she's still little, she's only 11, but I think she was only like 8 at the time. And she started calling me mom. She asked if she could call me mom. She was telling me that she loved me. And I was like, this is awesome. And then she went and spent one weekend with her other parent and came back, and that has never happened again. And now, like, she's a little weird about telling me that she loves me back.
Which is going to think though, it sucks. Right.
Yeah. And I think that you mentioned the whole the love thing, and I think that brings me to a point that I mentioned earlier in the week, and is that I think that when you come into these situations as a step parent, it's hard. First of all, it was very hard for me because I don't have my own kids, so it came from. Now, I've helped raise nieces and nephews and babysat over the years, but it's very different. I didn't have anybody full time at my place with me all the time. And then so as a step parent, you want to get into this situation where you're coming in and you're going to be the best parent ever. And you have all of these, I don't know, and maybe you experience this a little, Sariah, because you only had the one, but you have this idea of how it's going to be. Like, we're going to co-parent, it's going to be great. And then when it doesn't happen the way that you've imagined it, it's almost like you beat yourself up a little bit. Like, you almost feel like a failure. Like, how did this happen? And so was that something when you guys had to transition from co-parenting to parallel parenting, was that something that you dealt with? And maybe even you, Kiko, as well, did you deal with that though? Like, you had these ideals going in of how it would be.
Yeah, we definitely felt like we were failing. I think even in just the past couple of years, we've seen more and more content, more and more information about parallel parenting. That's validating. Luckily, we were seeing therapists, and they coaches. They call themselves therapists. No,
I like to refer to them as coaches.
But they doubled down on validating what we were doing. And I think at first you go into the unknown of like, is this like, you're constantly worried, am I going to mess up my kids? Right? Like, right. My childhood family is completely split. Like, half the siblings don't talk to each other. Half the siblings don't talk to one of the parents. Like,
basically all adults, and there's still alienation that's occurring
as adults.
I'm like, that sucks.
And so you're like, for me, I'm like, I do not want to mess up my kids. I don't ever want them to decide that like they can't invite us to their wedding someday. Like, that's what's happened in my own family, is like, out of 6 kids, only one person ever had a wedding that they invited both parents. And that was terrifying, right? Like, that was like the elephant in the room. It was horrible.
I'm sure it's probably pretty stressful. Of like, what's this going to be like?
What's this going to be like? So we didn't want any of that. And so as we were moving forward, we're like, are we going to mess up our kids? Like, what is going to happen? Like, are we being no better than our parents? But as time went on and we continued to follow the advice of professionals, and like, we're talking all professionals, like we've had CPS involved, and we've had police involved. Like, we had a horrific battle over the past couple of years, and we've just continued to follow the advice of professionals and double down on it. And as time went on, we started to see the results of that. We started to see the children thrive because the chaos that was involved before and the constant this was happening between the two homes, it was tearing them apart. But by parallel parenting, we have seen them blossom. We have seen them thrive. They're doing better in school. Their mental health is better. We had just so many. Looking back, I'm like, how have we survived the past 3.5 years? I know.
Although if we would have known any better, we would have implemented this sooner than later. But you have to exhaust all resources with the other parent. I mean, you really have to go through all of the best options. And if you just hit that wall, which I like to refer to as high conflict bio parent, but I like to call it golden female reproductive organ syndrome. That's what I like to call it, right? And when you're dealing with
golden yoni syndrome.
Yeah, golden yoni syndrome. There you go. Because it's a golden matrix syndrome. But anyway, either way, when you recognize that wall is there, don't try to climb it. You immediately just start shifting and adjusting, because when that condition is present, there's deeper rooted issues that are the procuring cause of that golden female reproductive organ syndrome. There's behavioral issues that are usually the underlying issues that cause that, and that's a byproduct, right? And then when you recognize that the selfishness is never going to go away, because parents would rather use their children as pawns to get what they want, to build their emotional band-aids or win or prove a point or get one over, then they're not acting in the best interest of the kids, they're acting in the best interest of themselves. So when you're dealing with that, you can't feed into it or fight it, because it's a losing battle. You have to just basically make those shifts, do what you can within your own home, and don't feed into that, right? Yeah. Because the best way to defend against that stuff is not participate in it, because then you're just contributing to your own delinquency. Then you start questioning your damn own reality, and all of a sudden it's what's going on? Are we screwing everything up? Yeah. I hope that all made sense.
Yeah, for sure. And so, guys, I know we need to kind of wrap it up here pretty quick, but the reason why I talked to Holly about having you guys on. Sariah, we've obviously been friends for a while. We're friends on Facebook. And, all these short videos started to come out, and I see that you make more and more about being a step parent. And
bonus.
No, I like to call myself step.
Okay, fine, fair enough.
So I'm not a bonus to anybody's life.
Because you stepped up?
I stepped up, and I think a major act role in my child's life.
I see what you did with that. Good job.
And so I feel like that's a good way to look at it, though.
And so you have these videos, and I, and just so our listeners know that, and again, we're going to put out to where they can find you on Facebook. You got somewhere around 68,000 followers. Yeah. And I've seen that grow over the past year. I remember about a year ago, you and I were talking about, just talking about making these videos, and I've seen it grow about 20,000, almost 30,000 actually followers in a year, just from doing these videos. And sometimes I see that people don't always respond favorably to you when you're sitting here trying hey, we're doing this great thing. And Kiko, you had said something when we spoke earlier that she's trying to kind of change that stigma a little bit, and you're behind her 100% on that. So talk of that, if you guys will, of kind of that stigma you're trying to change, what you're trying to get to, and these videos, and how do you respond to these? How do you keep going when somebody says your kids are going to grow up and pour urine all over you?
Right. I think first, it so much relies on the bio parent, right? So in our situation with Kiko's kids, he doubled down on supporting me and made that known to the children. So I think that's super important. In our home, we stopped trying to figure out what was best for the kids with both homes, and we went and zeroed in on our home. What's it going to be like in our home? We can't affect another home. What's it like in our home? So him doubling down on it is huge. And then
be specific. What we do now is the kids ask me, I'm like, why are you asking me? Go ask Sariah. So they have to ask her permission to go to their friend's house, to go do this, to go do this. She has to sign off on it, not me.
Listen, married couples do that. Me, both natural parents, we do the same thing. They come to me and I'm like, go ask your mom. I don't.
Yeah. I sacrificed a lot for this marriage and this blended family. So I gave up. Not gave up, but I walked away from my career, at least temporarily, to blend our family. And then as we started having more and more problems, I just edged myself in as a full-time stay-at-home mom, which I've never done my entire life, right? And now I am. And so I'm the one that's here. I'm the one that's dealing with the kids every day more often because he's working, right? But my goal in sharing our information is to try and help those that might feel like how I did, like lost and alone. And luckily, Kiko supports me. He's amazing with that. And our kids support us too. Like they wanted to be a YouTube family when we first married. They're like, they found out, I had however many followers back in the day. They're like, we want to be a YouTube family. So far, and we constantly ask them and talk to them about it, and they are supportive of us sharing stuff. And so we're also cognizant of that because they also have social media and their friends have social media. And so that limits some of the things that we can talk about, but wanting to share like, hey, it's okay to parent your kids, like even not step parenting, just parent. Like parents these days think they have to be their kid's best friend. And we have doubled down on them. We are not their friends. We make them do chores. We make their friends do chores. And their friends love us for it. Like they actually don't mind coming over. Anybody in proximity, you help out when you're on our phone.
We have a chore app that financially incentivizes them.
Yeah.
So we try to turn it into like a business. So, and it kind of works, right? Because we live in an incentive-driven society. So
yeah, but a huge part of it is like sharing what we've been through to maybe help others, and be that voice and try to help people avoid some of the pitfalls that we avoided. And I just made my most recent reel is because there's somebody that has been very close this whole entire time. I've known the kids since they were born. And when I joined, this person kind of disparaged me as a stepmom and kind of got protective and got vocal with the kids and didn't appreciate what we were trying to do in our home and tried to have a voice in it. And now, a couple of years later, they recently reached out and apologized because they can see the difference in the kids. And I think change is hard for anybody to accept, right? You're like, oh, our kids are used to this and this is the way life is going. And we realized we had to do a course correction because the kids started failing in school. They started having a lot of mental health issues. And we were like, we can't keep going down this path. We have to change it.
But it can't be a dictatorship. Like we have to become united. We have to become one because it literally takes a village. And the village is just, even if it's just YouTube, but you have to be united. It can't be one-sided dictatorship. That's how you start breaking down the stigma of step parents, right? And it's an 80-20 rule, right? Everybody focuses on the 20% negative, or you can focus on the 80% positive, right? So like if people are going to continually focus on the negative stories that they hear about step parenting, just going to feed that BS narrative. But if you focus on the 80% of the good that's actually happening, people need to share more of that stuff and the successes that they're having. But unfortunately, people love negativity though and drama. Yeah. So it literally takes a village. That's how you start breaking that down.
Yeah. So while I don't need the validation, this person who used to fight against us was like, I see now and I'm sorry. I see what has happened with the children. They blossom, they're like night and day, and they're happier because they understand kids love structure and they love knowing what to expect. And blending of a family, everything changes.
And it's going to continue to change. You got to be fluid, right? You can't be stuck in your right angle, so to speak. You have to be versatile, right? You have to adapt because things are going to shift, things are going to change, things are going to occur in your day-to-day lives. Some outside influence is going to come in. You have to be versatile, but still operate within the boundaries that you set to be able to manage the family, but be versatile, be fluid, right? That's important.
And that's kind of the message we want to give, to feel empowered as a step parent, feel empowered as a blended family. Don't be scared to create your home and your home structure the way that you feel is best for the kids. And when it comes down to it, what's in the best interest of the children? And I think a lot of times, in your situation, Holly, a parent can forget what's in the best interest of the children and instead what's in the best interest of themselves, right? Not willing to share their children. You were just one more adult to love those kids and you weren't a threat, right? I promise you are a step parent isn't going to replace a bio parent unless the bio parent chooses to not be there.
But the bio parents to purge the mom guilt and the dad guilt that they feel. So because they allow the guilt to control them, so they let their kids do whatever the hell they want, right? It doesn't work out. They got to let go, forgive themselves, give themselves some grace, so that you can implement these things instead of allowing this guilt from the divorce, govern their lives. Because if you don't get rid of that, you're going to be anchored down, and nothing's going to change, and things are going to get worse. So they got to let go of that.
Yeah. Bio parents are not in competition with each other or with any potential step parent.
100%.
Not a competition.
It's not a competition.
Well, guys, we definitely appreciate you taking some time to be here. And I think you guys, you said you mentioned you had a podcast a while ago. I think it's time to, maybe get something going again.
We keep getting told that.
We need to blow the dust off of the old microphone, I guess.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, but you're the second person in like the last week to for you doing so.
So, Sariah, where can we find your videos if we want to find you on the socials?
So right now they're just on my personal account. We have a couple of pages, but they're not going anywhere. My personal account, everybody likes. So on Facebook, it's Sariah, Sariah, Arvizu, Arvizu. And then on Instagram and TikTok, it's Sarsartastic.
It's the handle.
Right.
Great.
We'll put a link to that in the description so anybody can find you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
That was my reminder to make a reel today.
Well, good. Well, we are glad you guys joined us today. And hopefully, I know that there's a lot of listeners out there that are maybe going through the beginning phases. Maybe they've been in this 10 years and they still haven't figured it out. And, this may be something at least just to kind of get the ball rolling and maybe moving in the right direction for them.
Even if not, everybody has a niece or nephew, right? Everybody has somebody that they're close to, not is dealing with co-parenting. And how can you change your mindset and support a family who's going through blending or who's going through a divorce and has to co-parent?
But if nothing changes, then nothing changes, though, right? Like you got to break the pattern.
Yep, absolutely. Well, guys, thanks for being on. We look forward to seeing a great podcast from you guys one day.
We'll get it.
All right. Take care, guys.
I found. We appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome.
All right, see ya. All right, Holly. Awesome couple. But thoughts on that? Kind of recap. What you think?
Yeah. So I've had an opportunity to watch some of Sariah's videos, and I will say that very helpful. Just they always say hindsight's 20/20. In my experience, I've had the experience, of having my the first one that we talked about, and then the second marriage I was in. There was no biological mom in the picture by the time I came in. My ex had full custody 100% of the time. There was never, I think the very first summer he and I started dating was the last time the children saw their mom. And she had him for a month of the summer. And then after that kind of did her own thing. So it was a different kind of situation because I think when he and I got together, he had the kids on his own. And so he kind of welcomed in me being there and helping out with the kids. But, when we first went into it, like I was, mentioning to Sariah and Kiko that, you go in with this idea of how it's going to be. And so when we went in, this was the idea, basically like, hey, these are your kids. They're not my kids. And so, you take care of them, you do all of that. But living together, it was unrealistic because there was a lot of times that he wasn't there, that I was there. And so how do you handle something like a disciplinary situation if I'm not allowed to discipline the kids or things like that? And so we had to change course pretty quickly to establish, hey, that's not going to work where I'm a hands-off parent.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like me and Val talk about all the time about you. And that's simply that, yes, you may not be a biological mother, but you just love to mother kids. Like you love to mother your nephews and nieces, my kids. You are a great mother to them when you need to be. And then to your stepkids, I saw that with the first marriage. I see that now because you essentially have no contact with the first two.
Correct.
But these three stepkids that you have, you're divorced. And so
Correct.
You're not in their life every day, but how often do you talk to them?
I talk to them quite often. So after their father and I divorced, actually, the oldest one, he moved in with me and lived with me for about 2 years. And, I could see he was struggling with a lot of things. He's very quiet, keeps to himself. And there was just things that I could see that, he might need some help on. And so I ended up getting him into some therapy, and he goes still, after he just moved out into his own place last year. And we talk very regularly still. And last Mother's Day, I think it was, he ended up, it was either Mother's Day or like right after he had moved, maybe he ended up sending me a card in the mail. And he basically said, like, you're the best mom I could have ever asked for. And that was pretty powerful for me. Because it was a big thing coming from him. Like he's always
culmination, like all this work that you've done, and not that you were even doing it to like, hey, I'm doing work. It was, I'm just gonna love this kid.
Yeah, like I love all of them, you know. And with him, he had never. I can remember even like the two littles when we got together. The two youngest were young, 5 or 6 years old. So, you know, from the start, they just wanted a mom. You know, they wanted somebody in their life, and so it was. You know, they would tell me all the time they loved me. It wasn't, you know, they still do. And with him, he was 13, you know, when I came into his life. And so it was a very different dynamic than a 5-year-old, you know. And I can still remember the first time, you know, I would tell him all the time, hey, I love you, and would never say it back. And so it was kind of, you know, like whatever. But I remember the first time he said it back to me, it was after I think, had separated, and I was dropping them off at their dad's house. And so I said, you know, hey, love you, you know, to my one son. He said, I love you back. The other one's getting out. I said, hey, love you, bud. Knowing he was just going to say, see ya, and shut the door. And he said, I love you too. And his father and I at the time were still on good terms. We were just kind of separated. And so I had sent him a text and said that he had told me he loved me. And he said, he doesn't even tell me he loves me. And so we joked that it just must have been an accident. It must have been like a one time, like he just said it back, not thinking about it. But then ever since then, he's always said it, but he's never said he thought of me as his mom or whatever. And I guess in that moment, it was just, like you said, it was just this culmination. I don't know, just made me feel really good, I guess. I don't know how to explain it, but like I talked to him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we talk, you know, often, daily. He still, you know, I helped him with a lot of things that he just had no clue about, because he doesn't know about life when you're 18 and 19. What do you know? So even now he'll still text me. I still help him with things. And I talk to the other two, you know, I can see them when I go up there at any point in time. Just, you know, I just coordinate that through either their dad or, you know, them. But, you know, we're on friendly terms. And so it's nice because it was very hard after my first divorce that I didn't get to keep in contact with the girls from my first, you know, the first time. And every once in a while, randomly, like, that ex-husband and I will have to talk about something very, like, not recently, but like, I don't know, there's been things in the past and he would always give me an update. He'd say, like, I know how much you love them and whatever. And I should probably, you know, I don't have social media, so I've never reached out to them recently. And I think it's also like, I don't want to interrupt or disrupt their life, you know, where they're at now. I don't want it to cause issues. And for me, like, I love them and I still love them, you know, I still have strong affection for them. I think of memories with them a lot. But, you know, and like Sariah said, like dating with children, it's different. But for me, it's almost like I'm dating now and I don't actively want to date somebody who has young kids, because the reality is, like, after a first divorce, every time you get married afterwards, like, the chance increases of a divorce. But I don't intend on getting married again. But I also understand that
listen, I mean, there comes a point where I'm like, my youngest is 8 and he can take care of himself. I am not interested in the 2-year-old. Like I love them. And if my niece or nephew comes over and they have their kid and he's 2, like, I'll hug on him and kiss on him and give him candy, but get out of my house. Like,
right.
I love you, but go home. No, so I get it. Well, that, you know, awesome topic to have. Awesome to have them on with us. I followed her for a while. Obviously, we've been friends for a while, and just her influence, I think, has been good. But hey, in closing here, we gotta wrap up. But a couple things that I wanted to mention real quick. Some of our listeners may have heard our new closing to our show. They may have seen it on YouTube. I just wanted to bring that up for a second. That's actually our nephew, Joe, telling his subscribers on his YouTube channel to like, subscribe. You know, and we just love that. Just wanted to share what that was. So if people are like, hey, what is this?
Who is this? What are they saying?
You know, that was him. I think he was probably 10 years old, maybe 11. I have no idea. And he was actually, that video, it's his first and only video that he put on YouTube. And he gave a tour of his new bass boat that they just bought. And he was telling his followers to like and subscribe. So we did get permission from him, and he loves that.
And I think it's funny because when you listen to it now compared to how he talks now, he's got like a deeper voice than you. So it's so, I just went home last weekend and I forgot I was going to have him recorded again in his current voice just so we could compare and laugh. But
yeah, it was pretty funny.
He did tell me though, like, if you guys ever make money off this podcast, I better get some royalties.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. Right now you're getting 10% of nothing. And the other thing that just kind of blew your mind, and I'm going to close out with this, is if you haven't been on our socials, if you haven't seen them, go back and check out the crossword puzzle from Wednesday of this past week. Obviously, you don't know what week it is if you're listening in, but April, the week of like April 25th, we did a show and we called it Mr. Roboto because we talked about AI and all that stuff. And then we also talked about in that same show the gene editing, CRISPR. And you send me a text message and say,
right,
I will edit.
I said, bro, we fucking manifested it.
That's it.
There you go. I said it for you. So what happened was we posted that show. We recorded that show
on a Saturday. I mean, like we dropped it on a Monday.
We dropped it on a Monday. So I think we actually had to record it.
I think Thursday.
Recorded it. We drop it Monday morning at 2 a.m. so that when everybody wakes up Monday driving into work, all 7 of you, because I think we're up like 2 subscribers.
We've got 12.
Oh, 12. There you go.
Spotify.
So all 12 of you guys could listen on your commute in on Monday. So Tuesday, because I'm a huge nerd, I love crossword puzzles. And so I pay for the New York Times subscription so that I can do all the crossword puzzles. And the benefit is they drop them the night before at 9:00. So we dropped our episode Monday, 2 a.m. It's released. Mr. Roboto and CRISPR in there. And Tuesday night, I'm in the bath. I've been drinking a little bit, but I start to solve this crossword puzzle. That was the Wednesday New York Times crossword puzzle. So 2 days later, and the first 2 clues I solve have to do with Mr. Roboto and CRISPR.
That's crazy. So, it's nuts. I think you manifest into your life the things that you want, and here we were. And so I'm just going to put it out that the New York Times listens. They are one of our subscribers.
Somebody
sure
does.
Yeah.
100%. They have to be.
It was pretty fun, pretty exciting. So we'll close it out with that. We've obviously, hopefully, our goal from today is that there's somebody that could benefit from what we talked about, and either that's moving forward with their life as a step parent, as a biological parent. How can we make this thing work better? But in the end, it's all about doing what's best for that child until that child can be of age to kind of make their own decisions and do those things. And that's my opinion. That's how I feel. And obviously Sariah and Kiko feel the same way, and you as well. So hopefully it can bring a little clarity and a little peace to somebody.
And, and I know there's the one thing I will say is when I first started, as a step parent, it was hard, but the culmination of all of that to hear, I don't even call them my stepchildren. I just call them, my sons and daughter, and to hear them tell me they love me and I know that they actually mean it, that's been worth it to me. All the hard days, the tears, everything I've gone through, and I went through a lot with these 3. It was worth it. It's been worth it to me because as much as I've been there to take care of them, they've enriched my life as well. And I think it's just definitely if you put in the time and the effort. And, and I think a big thing I just want to mention real fast is people, step parents come in and they come into the situation and, hey, I'm going to, love these kids. And sometimes it's hard, there's days where it's like, hey, man, like, yeah, I love you, but I don't like you very much today. And that's okay to feel that way because it's going to pass at some point. And even if it doesn't, as long as you can still work hard to put those children first, it's okay if you don't feel an overwhelming love, even an overwhelming like. Just do the best you can do, and always remember to keep in mind that it's about the kids and like trying to make them into healthy, productive members of society who can get away with as much non-trauma as possible.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thanks for listening in, guys and gals, whoever's out there listening in. Thanks for listening in and being part of the show, and we look forward to speaking with you next time. Go for it.
Have a great one.
Take care.
Hey, what's up, my channel? Please hit the drop a like and hit the subscribe button. Looking for my first subscriber. Can't subscribe myself. Can't do that for some reason. I don't know why. Wish you could.